Well, to discuss this further, let's cross live now to Andrei Kelin, who's Russia's ambassador to the UK. Very happy to have you on the programme, Ambassador. Thank you for your time. I just want to talk about some of these very hostile statements that we're seeing coming out of the UK at the moment. We've had the former Director General of MI5 conceded that Russia and the UK are already at war. I mean, that is a very strong statement coming out from her. We've also had former Defence Secretary, this is Ben Wallace, making suggestions that he should be done to make Crimea uninhabitable. We know that the rhetoric coming out against Russia for many years has been difficult in the UK, but what do you think is driving this latest escalation?
Good day, Charlotte. The comments, statements that you had mentioned, they are really provocative and unacceptable, independently who has done them. They're pushing up the anti-Russian hysteria. They are also getting targeted to get used the population to the idea that military confrontation with Russia is possible and is allowed. But these are people that you have mentioned, they are retired, and they're just trying to remind about themselves. Officials from the current government, they do not speak it that way, but they do not repudiate it either. The representatives of Labour government are pretty often saying that Russia is making reckless and dangerous actions and statements. But I will say that people like Ben Wallace, they are making much more reckless statements. When he was Minister of Defense, he has done a lot to engulf the Ukrainian conflict, and he is proud of it, as far as I understand. He has now made a statement and published a comment in one of the British major newspaper, which, in fact, a repetition of the rhetoric by the neo-Nazis circles in Ukraine. This rhetoric 10 years ago has pushed population of Crimea, people of Crimea and Donbass, to make a choice for reunification with Russia. Listening to all these rhetorics, we feel that people like him are feeling a serious discomfort because events on the ground develop not their way, and the situation of the military forces of Ukraine is becoming worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, you talk there about the way the British government, including under Keir Starmer, is talking now. The British government was actually amongst one of the very first European powers to talk about publicly putting boots on the ground in Ukraine, British Army soldiers on the ground, along with many other initiatives that Russia has fairly branded provocative. What do you think London's end game is here in pushing these hostilities and these hostile policies that are clearly aimed directly at Russia?
Okay, I will say that from the very beginning, London did not cover that it is interesting to engulf Ukrainian conflict in order to put us as such so-called strategic defeat. What does it mean? We really still do not understand. Then later they were speaking that the security of Ukraine is very closely linked with the security of Europe. Britain stands aside on it. Now they speak about the immediate and unconditional ceasefire without thinking about the future, about the thinking of the real settlement, of the long-term settlement of the conflict. As we clearly understand, London is against a decision or solution which will bring to a constant and not temporary cessation of arms clashes, but it will eliminate the ground roots of Ukrainian crisis. Looks like here they still think about an option to include Ukraine into NATO and to deploy NATO contingent or striking potential on its territory. It is clear that the goal of the so-called coalition of the willing is targeted to preserve anti-Russian potential of Ukraine, and it is desirably in presence of the NATO forces on its territory. All these plans and ideas are quite transparent for us, and we are going to react appropriately. Western countries should clearly understand that when they speak about a certain price which Russia is supposed to pay for the Ukrainian crisis, they should not forget that they always will get a bill, the bill for this. And the longer they are going to nourish or to finance the regime in Kiev, which de facto has turned Ukraine into a failed state, the higher will be the price in this bill.
Yeah, interesting, particularly given as it looks like we're going to have a big global turn down with many of those governments having to have spent billions and billions on Ukraine and not likely to get that money back. Your Excellency, I just want to ask you about some of the claims coming out from the UK that Russia is the country's nemesis, insisting that the peoples of the two countries have essentially been adversaries now for a very long time. But we know that the official position in Moscow is very different. The Kremlin has said that there are no hostile people, it's only hostile governments. I just wondered, Your Excellency, how that perspective applies to Russia's relationship with London right now.
It's an interesting word, nemesis. It has different meanings, but I will say that contradiction between our countries existed during the major part, bulk part of our history of bilateral relations. It has been initiated as a rule by Britain. To my regret, at the current stage, relationship are in a deep crisis, and we are not to blame for it. This government, let it be Labour or the Conservative, is initiator and participant of many unfriendly actions. The British establishment and the media, which is close to them, they are trying to implant hostile feelings to the British population towards us. That is why they are deploying fake news about so-called threat emanating from Russia and about activities which Russia has never done. They are creating a so-called toxic atmosphere around those who would like to continue the dialogue. Moreover, British people who are interested in cooperation with Russia, they are now getting scared by this, the new scheme, by the new law. It is called Foreign Influence Registration Scheme. This instrument obliges to inform powers about any activities with the Russian state. Of course, against this background, one cannot speak about kind of active contacts with the population of the United Kingdom. We understand that. We understand who has prepared this, and we do not put obstacles to people-to-people contact. We do not close our border for the tourists. More important is to keep in the current conditions our true attitude towards British people in preservation of history, in preservation of memory about that we were allies during the Second World War, and we demonstrate our sincere respect to the participants of these events.
Yeah, it's important to remember that as well. I just want to talk about the media attention in some reports that have focused a lot on the last few days, particularly about the idea of Washington potentially giving not just provision of intelligence for long-range missile attacks to Kiev, but also supplying the weapons. But there are reports that suggest that London has already been doing this, and yet that doesn't seem to be garnering any attention in the press. How do you think that affects Russia's relationship with the UK, in comparison to the US?
Well, it is nothing new in the well-known information that the British side provides complex military support to Kiev regime, including transition of weapons, intels, and preparation of personnel. London has recommended itself as one of the major sponsors of Kiev regime. It is a surprise to nobody, of course. We are very attentively to following, and of course we are taking into account while constructing our policy line towards Britain. We are against any kind of escalation, as I have already said. Of course, to all those who are helping and assisting government of Zelensky and will get a bill. In what way this bill will be presented, it's a different question, but we will think about that.
Yeah, you said there, not looking for any sort of escalation. That's not how many Europeans are viewing it. The British media recently interpreting a speech by President Putin at the Valdai Discussion Club in Sochi, that was just last week, suggesting that his speech was a threat to Europe because he said that Russia has to respond to the militarization plans in Brussels. But he was also quite clear in that speech that there are no plans to invade Europe. I mean, it seems such a ridiculous notion. But that wasn't mentioned. That was overlooked when people were reporting that. I just wondered, what are your thoughts on the reaction to his speech from the UK media?
Well, frankly speaking, I have seen different reactions towards what President Putin has pronounced in Valdai. But the major trend is that the British media in every situation makes a choice towards promoting the theme of escalation and not of detente. We have clearly seen that this is the policy line. We have clearly seen that this is a current policy line, and the translation of so-called peaceful thesis by the President of Russia is not in the interest. It does not follow this policy line. The idea about the necessity to prepare for the military confrontation with Russia, with our country, is being implemented into the thinking of the population, and we understand why. In France and in Germany, there is a deep crisis. Same in the UK. It is necessary to divert attention of the citizens from the multiple problems of internal problems, economy and the others, which are these countries are now having. At the same time, we do not forget about the efforts by the military-industrial complex, the industry, which is really interested in getting long-term contracts now. As probably you remember that after the end of the Cold War, it was a very common expression, so-called dividends, peace dividends. I will remind what this means. It means that a reduction of spendings on the big military contingents are unnecessary, as well as the armament. And countries of Europe got enormous means to develop their economy and to increase quality of life of the population. They could have used it for the benefit of people, population of the country, but it didn't happen. Now, the leadership of the government, Labour government, actively speaks about dividends of war. Probably they think that they will get more income for the budget for the sake of the military industry. You are right that statements by the Russian leadership about the absence of the threat towards Europe trying to be bypassed, not noticed. All this now follows the current policy line by the Western countries.
And just one more question, if I may. This is about Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, which says London is planning a provocation in Ukraine. And this could involve an attack either on a Ukrainian naval ship or a foreign civilian vessel, with the intention of pointing the finger and blaming Russia for this. I just wondered, Your Excellency, have you communicated this information to your counterparts in the UK? And if so, what has been the reaction?
It's a common knowledge. It's a common knowledge. I believe that London is taking direct participation, an active participation in preparation of a certain provocation which has been executed by Ukrainian forces on our territory as well. Moreover, they are trying to raise the degree of confrontation without thinking about the consequences. I am sure that these signals has reached the addressees and they have understood by the appropriate way. What I would like to pay attention once again that this hysteria in the British media is very artificial. Even when there is no specific information cause, either it is being created artificially. For instance, it's about the drones that has suddenly appeared in the European space in different places, or they are trying to get from some archives old events like about staged provocation in Bucha. Always it is targeted towards emotion. It is targeted to provocate irrational anti-Russian feelings among the audience. And this type of warped-up audience is easily believed to an absolutely unreal cause which stands no critics.
Yeah, absolutely. Ambassador, we'll need to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time today. That's Andrei Kelin, Russian ambassador to the UK. Благодарю.
Спасибо большое. All the best.